All right, let's talk about a current team member's brother attending the Chiefs' upcoming rookie minicamp, how Mecole Hardman spent his first $1 million, and then let's dive into Brett Veach's post-draft presser with the media. But first, how about those? What's up, guys? My name is Cole, and I do daily news about the Chiefs and the NFL overall, so sub if you're new, hit that like button if you'd like to see me arm wrestle with Darian Kinnard, and let's get into this news. And for the record, I would never arm wrestle Darian Kinnard because he would literally rip my arm right out of socket. But rookie minicamp for the Chiefs is confirmed for this weekend. It'll be Saturday, May 7th through May 9th, and there will be a ton of different rookies in attendance, both drafted and undrafted. And I saw this morning from Chiefs Wire, they are legit. Check them out if you haven't already. But there will be a family member of a current player on the team in attendance at this rookie minicamp. As first reported by Draft, HBCU's Malik Obey, the Chiefs have invited Alabama State defensive tackle Christian Clark to rookie minicamp. Clark is the younger brother of Chiefs defensive end Frank Clark, the Shark himself. Listed at 6'1" and 322 pounds, Christian is a run-stopping defensive tackle who was tough for SWAC offensive linemen to move. He was also tough for them to block in the passing game. In 2021 at ASU, the younger Clark played both spring and fall football. He earned first-team All-SWAC honors for the second time during the spring after recording 15 tackles, 2.5 T4Ls, a forced fumble, and a pass batted in 5 games played. And during the fall, lots of numbers here, but stick with me. He recorded 40 total tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, 2 block kicks, which is dope, and 1 pass batted in 11 games played. And this is a pretty cool moment for the Clark family. Christian told NFL Draft Diamonds in an interview last May that his older brother is his favorite player in the entire NFL. Quote, "I would have to say my brother Frank Clark is my favorite player. The way he goes about the game and the confidence he plays with is something I try to implement into my game. The way he sets his opponent up all game, lurking and praying for the right moment, is something I've implemented into my game, especially this offseason. He tells me it's all about focus and tapping into yourself. So the mental aspect of his game is something I model my game after." So now Christian is getting an opportunity to follow in his brother's footsteps in the NFL, and with a good performance at rookie minicamp, he could even earn a spot in Kansas City. So yeah, guys, first off, that is just cool. In and of itself, the little brother of Frank Clark with the opportunity to potentially make the same team his older brother is on. You can tell he admires his big bro a lot, and even though Frank Clark probably won't be on the roster next year, how cool would it be if they were able to play together for a season on the same team? The odds of that happening, like in reality, are super low, but there is an opportunity here, which is pretty cool. You really do love to see it, and honestly, here's my opinion. As long as lil bro ain't out here wielding Uzis, everything is all good to me in my book. And then CBS now has the Chiefs third in the NFL in power rankings when taking a look at teams post-draft. From what I can tell, it looks like they only moved up 1 spot, but hey, third place in the entire NFL sounds good to me. Top 5 for sure. Then they graded the Chiefs draft picks as 6th best in the NFL overall, saying their favorite pick was Brian Cook, a Howard transfer. Cook moved from cornerback to safety at Cincinnati, and he might be one of the smartest players in this class. He can also lay the wood, I hate that term, coming downhill in run support and play coverage on the back end. The Chiefs did sign Justin Reed, but Juan Thornhill is in the final year of his rookie deal. For their best value, they thought it was Darian Kinnard. Kinnard had a chance to go on day 2, but the Chiefs got him early in the 5th round. He played tackle at Kentucky, but will kick inside in the NFL. That's what they say. But as we dive into Brett Veach's presser later, we're going to see that he actually does plan to have Kinnard play at right tackle. He plays with a nasty streak and can be a dominant run blocker. Oh yeah, and can't forget about the fact that he's mad about that draft selection, so we know that Hulk is definitely going to smash. Then they listed their most surprising pick as the Greek freak himself, Sir George Karlaftis. George Karlaftis was a polarizing prospect in the sense that some people thought he was a top 15 talent, while others liked him better in round 2. We fell in the latter group, though it's hard to argue with the fit in KC or with where they got him at number 30. He's a good football player who hasn't been playing the game very long. Yeah, and we know from the phone call that Spags had with him when they drafted him, that Spags was basically in love with the guy.
I evaluated a lot of guys this year. You were by far my top guy, my favorite guy.
So yeah, once Spags has his eyes set on someone, it's basically game over, whether it's for better or for worse. And then wide receiver Mecole Hardman was featured in a video yesterday with GQ Sports on how he spent his first $1 million. But let's break down how he spent his first million real quick. I found it interesting. He grew up in Georgia, lived with his folks like a lot of people, paycheck to paycheck, and then enjoyed his time playing football and spent 3 years at the University of Georgia, only about 30 minutes from home. He played there 3 years and always planned to declare for the draft after that. And when he did, he got that call from Brett Veach, signed his rookie deal with the Chiefs, which ultimately made him a millionaire. And here is how he spent his first
$1 million.
And here's how he spent it. The first $300,000 that he spent was for a house for his mom and dad. He made sure they were in a nice neighborhood and took care of those who took care of him growing up. And he didn't stop there. He bought his dad a Challenger, his mom a Durango, and definitely made sure they had nice vehicles. Then bought himself a red-eye Hellcat and also a decked out Jeep, which totaled around $223,000 for all those vehicles. Wow, that is more than my house's value just on cars. He then spent around $40,000 on shoes. Yeah, that's not a typo, $40,000. He said he has 20 pair that are around $1,000 each. Woo, and then another 100 or more pair that are under $1,000. That is very wild to me because that is more money than some people make in a year's salary at their job, $40,000. He then spent a week in LA on a big fancy vacation he always wanted to go on, spent like 10 racks on a chef, and then went to a couple clubs and said he spent around $30,000. Excuse me, my good sir, $30,000 at a club? I mean, I don't want to make assumptions here, but we all know that more than likely that club was not somewhere you'd pull up to with your kids, if you know what I mean. From there, he went to Mexico and took like 10 people with him on an all-inclusive trip and a couple other smaller trips, and those vacations totaled to around $100,000, no big deal. And then the rest of the million went into savings, around $300,000. He said, you make some, you spend some, but you definitely have to save some. And he ended the video encouraging players who are about to join the league. He told them, get a financial advisor and budget smart with that money. Even though he did spend a lot, he had a plan and executed accordingly to said plan. So there you have it, Mecole Hardman breaking down how he spent his first $1 million.
$1 million isn't exactly a lot of money these days.
And then Brett Veach spoke to the media yesterday for his post-draft press conference. He spoke on their goals for this year's draft, the defense being on the forefront of the mind, even though it wasn't as dramatic as the need for the offensive line like last year's draft, when the O-line was basically decimated by the time they reached the Super Bowl, and with them having their $500 million franchise QB's life at stake, jeez Louise, with said O-line absolutely demolished, that was a definite all-hands-on-deck mode they were in with last year's draft. Anyway, he did say that even with 7 defensive picks and only 3 offensive picks in this year's draft, he still feels they went for a balanced approach overall when you take into consideration the free agency signings on the offensive side of the ball with Juju, MVS. He mentioned Chad Henne, and then Rojo, Andrew Wiley. So yeah, they made some solid additions via free agency while at the same time getting younger, faster, more physical, and some needed depth via the draft. He congratulated his team on the hard work that they had done and for rolling with the punches and adapting well. For example, when the receiver market exploded and they had to pivot after trading away Tyreek Hill. Yeah, he feels really good about the talent and quality and quantity added so far, but then was a bit cautious in how he sees everything going, just basically saying there's a lot of factors at play here, including how players develop and at what pace they are able to do so, as well as injuries or potential injuries that could occur leading up to the season. And with all that being said, when looking at the upcoming season itself,
given the fact that we have 15, I feel optimistic, I'll say.
He was asked about Justyn Ross's health, and he said,
I've always said that our docs are on the more conservative side, and our docs at KU spent a lot of time talking to the experts that dealt with Justyn, and he's cleared, and our docs did a great job of exhausting all the information. And for me, it's a little easier on how I operate. I know how good our medical staff is, both Rick and his crew and the docs we have at KU, that if they tell me yes, I feel good. If they tell me no, I don't try to become a doctor all of a sudden and try to say, well, this team said this and that. No, if our docs say good, we're good. And Rick and his staff said they're good.
He talked about his neck injury and his foot injury and how that affected the reasons why he wasn't drafted, but he knows Justyn's agent. Justyn and Sammy Watkins have the same agent, so they stayed in touch during the draft, weighed their options, and Ross ultimately decided to come to Kansas City. I mean, let's be honest here, guys. I don't know who the other teams were that they were considering, but none of them, N-O-N-E, of them had Patrick Mahomes. Ross came here knowing that Tyreek is gone, their true wide receiver one, so there's more opportunity to fight for a roster spot, and also because Patrick Mahomes is one of the greatest QBs in the entire league. He spent some time talking about the secondary the Chiefs acquired through both the draft and then also Lonnie Johnson Jr., who they traded for with the Texans within the past day or two, which I'll talk about a bit more here in a moment. With the drafted guys in the later rounds, he liked Joshua Williams a lot despite being from a smaller school. His testing looked good, he had a nice pro day, and though he did struggle early on leading up to the Senior Bowl, he kept fighting and battling through the adversity, and he really liked to see that. Then when they brought him in for an in-house interview, he was very intellectual and had a pretty good grasp of their playbook. So when they factored all that in, including his intelligence, athleticism, the pro day, all that good stuff, even though he's from a smaller D2 school, they feel he has a real shot here of making the roster. Then of course they felt good about Trent McDuffie, who they spoke with briefly at the Combine, and then both of their secondary guys, Jalen Watson and Najee Johnson. He said they both have a lot of upside, and it was important for them to really add depth this draft. And then about former Texan Lonnie Johnson, who's Johnson? And then about former Texan Lonnie Johnson Jr., Veach said he was a name the Texans mentioned to the Chiefs prior to the draft when they were calling around, taking a list of names. So they kept in touch about it because he's a guy they did like. Coach Matt House was with him when he played college in Kentucky, and of course Justin Reed played with him in Texas, and they actually talked to both of those guys about Lonnie, and they like a big long press corner. They like his ability to press and play physical, and he did mention that the guy was bounced around while on the Texans, and someone commented on my video yesterday and said Lonnie Johnson Jr. is listed as a safety. He's not a cornerback, as if I was wrong about him being a corner, but I'm really not. He played corner in college and at the NFL level, and the Texans, who are a dumpster fire of an organization, were trying to bounce him back and forth and tried him full-time at safety, but he's not a safety at the end of the day. So Brett Veach basically acknowledged that much without saying the Texans were a dumpster fire. He was nicer than me because he has to be. I don't have a boss here. I am my own boss, so I do what I want. Anyway, he said they were pretty good at safety with Justin, Juan Thornhill, Brian Cook, and Deion Bush, but he thinks that what they did with the draft plus bringing in Lonnie, they will have plenty of competition at the corner position at the 3, 4, and 5 spots. And when talking about the competitive cornerback room that they have, he actually mentioned this about Rashad Fenton.
Fenton's a guy that obviously we're high on and we're very confident in. I mean, he's going through a little bit of a rehab now. So I think at a shoulder, I'm sure Rick will talk about that either after OTAs or before. It's something that I think he'll be ready for training camp, but we certainly want to get some guys out here and be ready to roll and be in position to kind of know what we have.
So yeah, this is certainly interesting and worth taking note of. I've been through 2 shoulder surgeries myself, so I know shoulder injuries can certainly be tough and stubborn to heal from at times, but hopefully he just tweaked it during the off season or something during training. He didn't specify, Veach that is, didn't specify if it was a lingering injury from the end of last season or not, so it's hard to tell what's going on there for sure, but I'll keep you all in the loop about that. Don't you worry. As far as the D-line goes, we know free agency didn't really pan out thus far, though Veach did say they are in a place now where they can still make a small free agency move, especially once they resume talks with Orlando Brown Jr. here within the next few weeks, get his deal done and see how the details of that contract play out. And in regards to Melvin Ingram and tendering him, it was an idea they discussed as a potential possibility a couple weeks prior to the draft, but my hunch is they wanted to get through the draft first and see where they landed on guys and then revisit the Ingram idea. Well, Veach himself said the draft was pretty lean with interior defensive linemen that they liked at least, but had a lot of linebacker, corner, and safety depth this go-round, so they made the decision to go with the best available players based on their boards, and it was pretty much all secondary guys. So yeah, after the draft ended, we know they didn't do too terribly much for the D-line aside from adding George Karlaftis, so I'm pretty sure they were like, yo, remember the Ingram idea from a couple weeks ago? Yeah, let's definitely do that. Tender him, like right now. Do it.
Okay. Do it. Do it.
I think what this UFA tender does, it allows us the ability to communicate and not have either him or his agent do something without us being in the mix. We would love to have him back and it would make sense for us. But regardless, I think now it at least allows us a chance to have dialogue with them before they decide to do anything, if they decide to do something somewhere else.
And now that the draft is over, teams may look at cutting some veteran players based on who they drafted and all that. So we will see if a free agency addition pans out here in the near-ish future. They definitely have some flexibility with draft picks next year and some freed up cap space still, so you never know. He touched on offensive tackle Darian Kinnard and thinks his play at the SEC level is going to translate well, potentially, into the pro level. He has some cleanup work to do, but Veach feels confident on their coaching staff and their ability to continue to develop him. He knows there's been talk about him playing at the guard position, but he really thinks he has what it takes to play the right tackle position. He said it might be rough at the beginning, but they love his length, athleticism, and he is wired the right way to grow into this system. So yeah, looks like their plan with him going forward is definitely at the right tackle position. So keep your eyes out on that, especially with Niang still rehabbing and all that on his knee. And as most of you know, the draft will be in KC next year. Veach is excited about that, and they've actually had discussions about setting up a draft war room at Union Station to be near the actual action. They bout that action, which is kind of cool. I think they have 10 picks for next year currently, but Veach did joke that Clark Hunt has told him multiple times that he's not allowed to trade away their first round pick, especially because the draft is in Kansas City. And although he was tongue-in-cheek about it, drew a couple chuckles, I think he was serious. Fans are going to want to show up to see who that first rounder is going to be. And I know you can never say never about draft picks based on who becomes available in free agency, potential trades, and all of that, but I would expect him to keep this first rounder for next year for sure. Do you guys agree with me on that? What do you think about this presser? What do you think about Frank Clark's little bro? Anything in this video stand out to you? Definitely let me know in the comments down below. I like to read them in dialogue. I'm pretty active in the comments, and also be looking out for a live stream probably sometime this weekend, since we definitely crossed the 10,000 sub mark. So hats off to you guys, because that is pretty much unfreaking believable to me. I'm very shocked by that, but hey, you guys like the content, so I'm just gonna keep going and making video for y'all. So yeah, make sure to sub for your daily dose of Chiefs news, and take a look at yesterday's video here if you haven't already, which dives in depth about the Lonnie Johnson Jr. trade, Melvin Ingram, and Tyrann Mathieu signing with the Saints. So until next time, let's go. How about those